So Rampage is directed by Uwe Boll and stars... Hold on one sec. Hello? Uh-huh. Oh. Oh. There's another... Oh. Oops. Okay. Thanks. Bye. Apparently I watched the wrong Rampage. I'm supposed to be reviewing the Rampage with Dwayne Johnson. Oops. Rampage is directed by Brad Payton and it stars Dwayne Johnson, Naomi Harris, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and it is based on the arcade game from the 90s, in which you play as either an ape, a gator, or a wolf, and you're supposed to destroy a town. In the game, actually, you're a human that turns into those things, but screw that in this movie. Yeah, they scrapped that. In this movie, it's an evil corporation, woo, are doing experiments on chemicals. Why? Doop-de-doop, I don't know. Well, what do? They, of course, make animals big and horrible and scary and give them mutations sometimes, but other times they don't. They're inexplicable like that. I guess they're trying to emulate the video game. Alright, fine. One of these animals is an albino gorilla that is under the care of Dwayne Johnson at a San Diego wildlife preserve, who, of course, grows bigger and bigger, and Dwayne Johnson doesn't know what to do, yada, yada, yada. Then the government gets involved, including, of course, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who's doing his own investigation. He's with the FBI, of course, and they're investigating. And the evil corporate people want to get the animals back to their building so that they can do more tests on them. And so they send out a signal so that it will lure the animals to Chicago, where they will rampage through the streets. By the way, the villains say this. I want to point out, the villains are completely okay with the animals destroying the entire city of Chicago and killing thousands, possibly millions of people. Just want to point that out. Like, these are the villains in this movie. They want to lure them back, and it's up to Dwayne Johnson to, I guess, destroy the animals. Stop it from happening. Basically, it's just an excuse to watch CGI creatures destroy the city of Chicago. Right off the bat, I've never played any of the Rampage games. What I know about it comes from just YouTube videos and looking up research for this review. I knew it was a game beforehand. I had vaguely heard of it, though. And video game movies are notoriously awful, right? Like, most of them are. Yeah, I know I own the Resident Evil movies. They're guilty pleasures. At best, Resident Evil's the best video game movie. Well, until recently. Up till this year, at least, Resident Evil was the best one. And that was just okay. Like, it was fine. After that, it's like Mortal Kombat. Alright, you know, that's a guilty pleasure. Like, at best you got guilty pleasures, and at worst you got... Well, at worst you got some really freaking bad Uwe Boll movies. And some other stinkers that are just awful. This movie is not that bad. So that's just where I'm coming with video game movies. Most of them suck. There are a few that I enjoy, and there's one actually that I could say is a legitimate good movie. But for the most part, they have not been good, period. Almost every video game movie, with a few exceptions, have been based on a video game that has no plot. And it's either a simple side-scroller arcade-style game, like Super Mario or Double Dragon, or you have movies that are based on very basic first-person shooters, like Doom. Or games like House of the Dead. Like, why would you make a movie about House of the Dead, Uwe Boll? But seriously, like, they never go after the games that actually have story, that have a built-in, like, world to play with, like Fallout, or something like even Grand Theft Auto, although obviously Grand Theft Auto is most fun when you explore. Or a game like Skyrim would be a good movie, or I guess The Last of Us, although that is kind of its own movie already. But they usually just go after the really simple video games. This is one of those. This is just a basic arcade game where you play as this character that's a human that's morphed into this giant animal, and you destroy a town. That's a fun game, I'm sure. I've never played it. I can't say either way, but people tell me it's fun. I could see it. It's just a simple destruction game. But that doesn't make for a good movie unless you have charismatic characters or charismatic actors. Unfortunately, the role they gave Dwayne Johnson doesn't quite fit him. See, I like Dwayne Johnson when he's utilized right. Hobbs in Fast and the Furious is a great example. That's a good role for him. When he can be that kind of strong, badass guy. He's a lot like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Not a good actor. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he's not a great actor. At the end of the day, he will never win an award. Ever in his life. He's not a dramatic actor. However, he is a fun, charming presence on screen. He's charismatic. He works in these action type of scenarios. Dwayne Johnson's a lot like that. He's very charismatic. Unfortunately here, he was just fine. He's really forgettable. I know he's involved with going to the city and trying to stop this event from happening, but without getting into spoilers in case you care to see this movie, he doesn't really do most of the work. He does very little of the work. And that's a problem when your protagonist is so uninteresting. And this movie really plays up to those old 90s disaster movies, like, Godzilla 98 is a great example. Or Twister, movies like that, where it's just like, let's destroy stuff, have characters react to stuff being destroyed, and, have to survive. And those movies can be fun when they're done really well, but the best ones are like Twister, or Dante's Peak. Yeah, I said it, Dante's Peak. Those movies aren't great, but they're fun because of the charismatic actors on screen. The roles work for them. Naomi Harris isn't all that memorable either in this movie, and she's great in 28 Days Later and the two James Bond movies she's been in. But unfortunately, she just doesn't have anything really to do here. She's just the person who knows what's going on, so she's here for exposition purposes. That's it. The shining example of acting is Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He is charismatic in this, and I wish I saw more of him in this movie. This movie would have been better. This movie ended up boring me, honestly. But Jeffrey Dean Morgan was a highlight of this movie. He had on-screen presence. He is a lot of fun. And I really want to catch up on The Walking Dead so I can see what all the internet fuss is about. I know him from other stuff like Supernatural. As far as the CGI goes, because let's be honest, this is the reason you're going to walk in a Rampage, is the destruction and seeing the creatures destroy this town, right? Just like you'd play the video game. The CGI is pretty good for the most part. I mean, the animals look like they're really there for the most part. But the destruction is not very interesting. First of all, maybe this was my understanding of the game, so this could be a fault of me and not the movie, but I expected them to be bigger. But they're really small, just climbing up these towers really slowly. And I'm like, what? Why aren't they like huge, like just destroying them, punching their fists through these towers or something? Like Godzilla. Like huge like that. Like that would have been, that's what you want to see in these movies. Just spectacle, just destruction. Yeah, it's very minimalist, but at least it would be something. This movie didn't even have that, but sure, for what it was, the effects were good. And also, it's just, if you're going to this for the city being destroyed, that doesn't happen until like the last 20 minutes of the film. And then up till then, you just have to slog through honestly boring characters for the most part, and that's a huge problem. The script is so uninteresting. The villains, as I alluded to in my plot summary, are so one-dimensional. Like, I couldn't believe how, like, there was no reason for what they did. No reason in them at all. You have the one woman who's the leader of the two. It's a brother and sister thing. Yeah, how many cliches can I name off right now? It's a brother and sister who run an evil corporation. The woman is the more evil person. She's the more smart and just pure evil. The guy's stupid, but he's also evil. He just wants money, 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 money. And that's it. Now, we don't know how he's going to get money. We don't know how either of them are going to get money. We don't know how it's funded. We don't know why they're doing this, which is the most important. If you watch a movie, and yes, I'm about to grab this movie. If you watch a movie like Deep Blue Sea, the girl in that, who's the head scientist, she's still sympathetic because the reason she's making these sharks smarter is because she thinks it'll help to find a cure for Alzheimer's. Yeah, it's not stupid, sure, but it's at least a reason so we can get on board with this character. Like, you feel a little sympathetic for her. You understand why she did it. I have no idea why these two did this. Like, make giant creatures. We want to make giant creatures. Why? Because. Or if you're not going to give them a reason, then make it a comedic thing. Actually comedic. They try comedy. But I mean actual funny comedy, I should specify. Because then it could be like Eight-Legged Freaks. If you remember that movie, the giant spider movie that stars David Arquette and Scarlett Johansson. In that movie, the scientist is literally doing this, feeding these, like, crickets to these spiders because he doesn't know why they're getting bigger, but he keeps doing it. And he's basically a moron, and it's funny. It's like, you're a freaking idiot, don't do that. It's like he's a moron. But because of the way it's done, it's funny and stupid. This one is not funny. They're just pure evil and stupid. They make Mr. Burns look three-dimensional.
Excellent.
Brad Payne as a director, he is one of those director for hires kind of things. It seems like he's not a very good director. He doesn't really have his own style. And his best movie is San Andreas, but that movie really only holds up because you actually like the characters in that movie. The writing isn't too bad, and the special effects are pretty good. It's still a decent film. It's nothing great. It's fine. But that's his best film. This movie didn't even have that, though. They weren't that interesting. It was boring. They tried to make the characters likable, and I'm not going to say they weren't likable, they just were forgettable. This feels like it just really wants to be one of those 90s disaster movies, 20 years late. It even has, like, all these cliches that I've already been mentioning, and, oh, like, it's so generic, and admittedly, I don't know what you could do with the Rampage game, probably not much, but you could have made it a little more fun, or, I don't know, get to the destruction earlier. Look, if you're just in the mood for stupid destruction, you might enjoy this, but I found it boring, and I like silly disaster movies. I like movies like Twister. I like movies like Anaconda and Deep Blue Sea or Eight-Legged Freaks. I like those movies. Those movies are fun and dumb, but they know they're dumb. This movie is just kind of boring and uninteresting and forgettable. It's not being harmful, but it's forgettable, and that's a problem. And I'm going to give this 2 out of 5 stars. Alright, that's my review of Rampage. Hope you liked it, and like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.